Hello, friends. Nature, unlike the world government, has given man everything necessary to satisfy his most immodest needs and boldest ambitions. But at some point, there was a smart aleck who decided that he could rule nature itself and distribute its resources at his discretion. Although such an opinion was supported by only a tiny part of the planet's population, it determined the development of our history for centuries and decades. But everything could have been different. And to convince you of this, I will tell you about the incredible discoveries that could have solved a large part of humanity's problems. This is what the anti-gravity effect of a miniature rotating magnetic disk, reminiscent of a UFO, looks like. And the first person who managed to vividly demonstrate such an effect was John Searle, about whose generator and flying disks I talked about in one of our May issues. After Searle, many enthusiast experimenters independently came to the conclusion that an electromagnetic field of certain frequencies is capable of generating a state in which gravity is absent and matter, time, and space change their characteristics. But to accept this assumption means to question the classical views on gravity and to revive the concept of the zero element, ether, and zero point, diligently erased from the history of science and Mendeleev's table. This means acknowledging the possibility of obtaining free energy from the vacuum and losing everything. As you understand, such a scenario, as in the times of the conflict between Tesla and John Morgan, cannot suit the representatives of the ruling elites. But what is zero-point energy? In our case, this is synonymous with vacuum energy. The change in zero-point energy, as the boundaries of the vacuum displacement region, leads to the Casimir effect, which manifests itself in nanoscale devices. It was this effect that the brilliant scientist and inventor John Hutchison brilliantly used in his work. The ambiguity of the concept of gravity has long and repeatedly been experienced by enthusiast experimenters. So, studying Tesla's longitudinal waves and incidentally using Van de Graaff's high-voltage generator, as early as 1979, Canadian physicist and inventor John Hutchison witnessed a new phenomenon unknown to science. Brief information: Van de Graaff's high-voltage generator generates up to 7 million volts. The operating principle is based on the electrification of a moving dielectric belt. However, the current is incredibly low, so even children can touch the generator. The interference of longitudinal waves created by 2 or more Tesla coils caused a 32-kilogram core to levitate. An ice cream from a cup, adjustable wrenches, and other small items were sent to the ceiling. Metal and various materials, wood and metal, fused together or heated to the melting and ignition temperature, and massive steel rods spontaneously tore apart as if they were paper. The surviving video recordings and documentary reports look so convincing that they border on the paranormal. Now we are observing the result of one of the experiments conducted in his garage by the inventor. John adjusts the frequency of electromagnetic radiations directed at arbitrarily chosen objects. Hutchison did not hide that much of what was discovered was a continuation of Nikola Tesla's experiments, whose available works he carefully studied. But what was obtained as a result of the experiments exceeded all expectations and went beyond the existing concepts of the nature of gravity, space, and time. The amateur inventor from Novosibirsk, Viktor Stepanovich Grebennikov, was convinced as early as 1988 that the classical view of gravity needed at least clarification, and he did this completely by accident, studying the chitinous covers of a May beetle under a microscope. The scientist noticed the perfectly structured, similar to bee cells, inner surface of its elytra, which gives the insect an anti-gravity effect in flight. However, Grebennikov learned about this later and completely by accident, when he mechanically folded one of the studied elytra onto another. But it was not so, he recalled later. The small part slipped out of the tweezers, hung in the air for a couple of seconds, turned slightly clockwise, moved through the air to the right, turned counterclockwise, swayed, and only then quickly and sharply fell onto the table. Based on this discovery, using bionic principles, the author constructed and built an anti-gravity platform and developed principles of controlled flight at speeds up to 25 kilometers per minute. From March of '89 to '92, the device was used by the author as a means of rapid transportation. A note about Grebennikov's night flights was printed by the high-ranking Soviet magazine youth technology. Hoping to share the invention with people, Victor Stepanovich wrote the book My World. But he did not dare to publish the technical details in the final printed version. Today, the model of Grebennikov's gravitoplane without a floorboard is preserved in a small museum named after him, and alternative modernized versions of personal air transport are successfully tested around the world. As research has shown, there is much more gravity in the universe, and especially in our galaxy, than in the visible matter that could have produced it. A bone of contention for supporters of the classical theory remains the question of the anomalously high rotation speed of the outer regions of galaxies. To somehow explain the discrepancies, scientists introduced the concept of so-called dark matter, a mysterious force of the universe, which, although invisible to the eye and telescope, is capable of making up for the missing calculated deficit of material mass. However, despite titanic efforts and billions in investments, this matter still remains as dark and hypothetical for inquisitive minds. According to the idea of Professor Erik Verlinde of the University of Amsterdam, gravity behaves and manifests itself not as described by Einstein and Otto. Even the very existence of dark matter should be questioned. And if Verlinde's hypothesis can be proven, it will finally allow us to unite the realms of classical physics with the subtle and much less obvious world of quantum mechanics. According to the hypothesis, in order to explain what is happening with the universe, we should not be interested in the volume of matter at all. The correct solution is to reconsider what gravity really is. The scientist compares it to temperature, which increases with the movement of microscopic particles and decreases as they slow down. More precisely, gravity is a consequence, not the cause of everything that happens in the universe. On paper, Verlinde's concept looks intriguing, but to establish the theory at the experimental level and put an end to the debate, it will take at least 10-15 years, he believes. However, the first very promising results have already been obtained. During the testing of the hypothesis in December 2016, a team of experts led by astronomer Margot Brouwer from the Leiden Observatory in the Netherlands studied the specifics of the distribution of visible matter in more than 33,000 galaxies. The method of gravitational lensing was used, which is applied to measure the distribution of gravity in galaxies and to observe objects very far from us. Data was collected using the world's largest optical telescope with a monolithic mirror, the Very Large Telescope. It is located on Mount Cerro Paranal, Republic of Chile. The results obtained allowed a conclusion to be drawn. Verlinde's gravity hypothesis aligns well with the preliminary factual data obtained during measurements. For now, the dark matter model appears more convincing, but only due to the presence of a vast array of collected data. On the other hand, if you look at the question from a mathematical point of view and take into account the fact that the hypothesis withstood the first blow without any free parameters, while the dark matter universe model cannot do without them, then Verlinde's model looks more convincing, Brouwer believes. And this, friends, is a small but still a victory for those who believe that air, water, earth, and energy should belong to everyone. And that's all for now. Thank you for your opinions in the comments. Find a minute to share this video with your friends. Until we meet again,